Hello and welcome to Stay the sales and marketing podcast from ReminderMedia, on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business so you can live a life of freedom tomorrow, but only if you take action today. My name is Joshua Stike, and we are doing this for a second time.
Yes, because we're having technical difficulties. Do you guys ever have technical difficulties in your life? I just makes you want to pull your hair out. I remember when I was playing, I'm going to share, too bad you guys can't hear the original audio because I gave you an intimate detail about my life, but I'm going to give you another one. So I was growing up in a band, and one of the worst things, I played music from like 13 to, it was probably 13 years old. I was in a band all the way up to about 20. Yeah, I guess it was 20 right before I turned 21. And was playing gigs all the time. One of the worst things is when you have a technical problem up on stage, like the sound goes off.
Yeah.
And you played in a band, right?
Well,
school band maybe?
Marching band?
Okay, that's not.
No, I played bass guitar in a cover band.
So you played in a cover band. But have you ever had the audio turn off on you, or the technical turn off on you when you have the audience out in front of you? And it is the most awkward thing. And that's where you have to learn to tell jokes.
Yeah.
Speak really loud. I was never any good at it.
It's all about how you recover.
All about how you recover.
All about in the
recovery.
We're
experiencing a little bit of those technical
But that's all right. We're going to power on because today we have an amazing guest on the podcast. His name is Sean Everett. He is a realtor and a founder of Everett Academy, an interactive real estate training, as well as a team lead for the Everett Group at Simply Vegas Real Estate. Sean and his wife, Allie, now manage a team of 10 realtors, and their online interactive training allows agents to hit $100K in their first year of real estate by focusing on the key fundamentals of being a real estate sales agent. Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's amazing to have you. And for all of you, if you're not making $100K, I hope your ears perked up because I hope you listen. I will have to say that, we were actually, Sean's wife, Allie, reached out to us. So they're a client of ours, and she let us know a little bit about Sean's story, which we had no idea, but reading what she wrote, I can't wait for you guys to hear this man's story and his journey because I think it's super powerful. And then I want to dive kind of into some of the details that have made you successful within your real estate business. But Sean, I would ask you if you could kind of introduce yourself to our audience and really share with them the journey that you've been on in your life, how you've made it to where you're at today, to where you're actually running a team of 10 agents and maybe more at this point, but 10 agents. So if you could kind of introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Sean Everett. So I'm actually born and raised in Las Vegas. So I'm surprised I didn't see you guys at the conference that you were recently at. But
well, you would have saw Josh in the casino.
We could have done this podcast live from Vegas.
So I was born and raised here in Vegas. So it was one of those things where when I was about 8 years old, my dad started flipping houses here in Vegas. So
gotcha.
I kind of grew up trashing houses out. He paid me $4 an hour to smash stuff and throw it in dumpsters, which is like every kid's dream.
Every kid to do that for free, right?
So I was stoked. I'm like, cool, you're going to pay me to go bust up TVs and stuff. Let's do it, So I kind of grew up doing that. By the time I hit about 15 years old, I decided, I want to start my own business. And at that time, my dad actually had about 86 or 87 properties here in town. They were rental properties.
Wow.
So I actually started landscaping all of them. So I got a buddy of mine. We got a small loan. We started landscaping all the properties on a maintenance. Built that company up, sold it, started into auto detailing when I was about 16. Built that business up and sold it. During that time, which was right when I was getting my real estate license, right when I was about 18, that's when the market tanked. That's when everything just hit hard, hit really bad. So I actually was a structural iron worker working on the high rises downtown doing real estate on the side.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of gave me a commercial feel for that. I was a welder, connector, things like that, just always working at the top. You kind of get hurt on a daily basis, but that's just one of those things, part of the job, right?
Yep.
So during the time I was an iron worker, though, I started getting really, really sick. And I started basically, I was nauseous every day, throwing up every morning. Massive headaches, and they could never figure out what it was. I was going to the doctor. I was in the hospital all the time. Well, long story short, go to UCLA, find out I actually have a malformation in my brain. And in a nutshell, what that means is my brain's bigger than my head. And you better believe I love telling people that. So, that's one of those things where I was like, I told everybody growing up that was the case. Nobody believed me. I got documentation now. So I was stoked about that. So it was kind of one of those things. Though, it was almost like emergency surgery type deal. So within a couple weeks, they had me scheduled. Took out a couple vertebrae in my neck, took out some skull, actually patched the part of the brain that was hanging down, patched it up. So it was making the left side of my body go paralyzed. And I didn't know any of this stuff. So I right before that is when I was like completely full-time in real estate for, I would say, about a year. I started noticing everything when I was an iron worker, and then, of course, years and years go on. But at the time I had to go in and get the surgery, I brought my wife on to help me out because I didn't know if I was going to be out for 6 months, a year. I had no idea. And luckily, we were actually back in the office in about 4 weeks. So it was pretty good. I don't remember a whole lot of that year because they were feeding me something new every two hours. But we actually increased our business by 20%. And if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't know anything about systems because prior to her, I was kind of just rolling with it. You know what I mean? So she kind of helped me change my mindset and really get rolling with putting systems and things in place to kind of utilize my time better and create more time for my business.
It's interesting just even hearing that, portion of your story and just the kind of the way you talk about it and the attitude. You have such almost like a nonchalant, just positive attitude. Like here you have a life-threatening, you end up in the hospital, emergency surgery, whole life basically is changing. You're just like, I had a bigger brain than my skull could, handle. So how did you overcome, like, what was that like at the time when you get that news that, something like that is happening? Like, how was that at that time and how did you handle that?
So at the time, it was one of those things where I was just like, my first immediate thought is like, well, all the TV shows and stuff where they're just like cutting someone's head completely open, right? That's my first thought. I'm like, oh, this is not good. And so, of course, just like any normal person, I guess I jump on YouTube and start watching some of the surgeries happen, right?
Did that help? Hurt or help?
Like, oh, this is wonderful. Yeah, like a couple days beforehand, my wife's like, you need to knock that crap off, man. That is not what you need to be doing. And I was trying to get them to film it for me, but they didn't give it to me. They didn't give me a copy. But it happened at UCLA, and it was actually the worst malformation they had ever seen. And they had done these surgeries quite a bit. So it was herniated 20 millimeters, which is a lot. The biggest they had seen was 19. So they were kind of surprised that I wasn't already paralyzed, and there wasn't a lot further going on with it. So when I heard how serious it was, it really freaked me out. I mean, big time, and I'm like, I don't really know what's going on. So everything I had in escrow, I got another agent to take care of it for me. At that time, I didn't have any team members. So it was one of those things where it was like, all right, I'm going to get some of the people at my brokerage to help me out and get rolling with stuff. And at the same time, train my wife to get licensed, help her out with the tests and everything, and kind of streamline everything as fast as I can to her, just in case something happened or it went wrong or anything like that, so business could continue to flow. So it was definitely freaky, but I'm just one of those people where, something happens. If I freak out about it, it doesn't really do anything any better. So if I just kind of keep calm and cool about it, things work out. And if it works out and it kind of goes the wrong way, well, I guess that's what was supposed to happen. So that's kind of just my mindset with things.
Now that is such a good mindset. It's actually, I was listening to another podcast, this morning when I was at the gym, and it was the Ed Milet show was interviewing this doctor, and I
love Ed Milet.
Oh man, he's a freaking beast. But they were interviewing this doctor. You should check out the latest episode that just released. But it was about how your mind, the power, like he's, I guess, a I'm not a neurosurgeon, but some type of neuro doctor, so neuroscience and stuff like that. But he was talking about the power of your mind and the mindset, and what you just mentioned in there triggered that memory for me this morning of worrying about something does good. And there was a joke that, my mother-in-law used to say all the time. She's a worrier. And her father would say, man, all that worrying you do really must pay off because none of it ever happens. And the point being is like that normally is what happens to people is that, but the point of that podcast that Ed Milet was doing is that when you worry about something, then you affirm it and constantly think about it in your mind, you are actually affirming the negative state. And one of the most powerful things from that podcast was that 50% of your memories are actually untrue. You've actually made them up. And so, what's interesting about
this explains everything.
Oh man, it's crazy. And like, listen to this. It's really crazy. The studies show that you make up 50% of your memories. What it is you have a bad experience, right? Then you embellish it to a friend. That embellishment becomes the reality. And pretty soon you're building your life off of a memory that never actually happened, and you're affirming that negativeness in your life. And just your attitude of how you approached this whole life-changing surgery, this whole could be life-changing thing in your first year of real estate. Most of us are suffering just getting leads. You're suffering actually from a physical condition, and you come back. So tell me a little bit of how you came back, and you said your income went up 20%. When you came back, right? You said when you came back from the surgery, you actually made 20% more that year than you did the previous year. How did you guys do that?
Yeah. So, and it was all about systems and implementing processes and making things go faster, you know? And so, and of course we've made leaps and bounds now compared to where we were then. But, it was so bad where I would just roll in, I would do my thing. I worked with a lot of investors doing flip properties. So, I mean, it was pretty easy for me to just kind of roll in, find some properties, go see, hey, you know, this is the spread, this is what the deal is. It was all numbers, you know, really easy, didn't need to dress up or anything like that. So, of course, my wife made me go get a whole new wardrobe so I could dress up, look nice, you know, and then, of course, she's always looking smoking hot. So that's one of those things you can't really, you know, I can't be looking like garbage next to her, you know, that just ain't going to fly. So, just implementing processes and systems, man. I mean, really, if you don't have a good CRM, spreadsheets and things like that, and just really, really hammering it out. And there's so many things that you can do for free in real estate that's going to bring you a ton of business. And
agree.
Everybody thinks it's the next CRM, or it's how many Google leads you're bringing in, how much money you spending on Zillow. I mean, that's everybody's thought. And that's not the case. You know, I mean, you can run a Facebook page and make it phenomenal. I mean, it's super, super easy as far as that stuff goes. You just have to stay in front of people often. So our first thing was, okay, where's the database? We went through all of our past clients, called everybody up, asking for referrals, checking to see what's going on in their lives. How can we help? Do they want to sell their house? They're looking to buy an investment property, and then collecting more people from them as well. I mean, you should be able to easily get 10 people off of each person that you know. So that's kind of what we did. We just started building the database like crazy. And really just all referrals. You know, 99% of our business, I would say, is repeat referrals and past clients. So we just started hammering the phones. And like I said, I can't remember a ton of that year, but I remember that it did come out 20% higher than the year before. And I want to contribute all of that to my wife helping me out, because I mean, she can take anybody's business and just multiply it. She's just good at that. She's done it many, many, many times.
That's amazing. So tell me, you know, obviously in your, you know, next year coming out of the surgery, you go up 20%. Over the last, how many years have you been at it now? Is it 10 years?
So 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
So I got licensed in 2008.
Okay, you got licensed in 2008. So you're, you know, around the 10-year mark. So tell me, it's been systems. Can you give us a little bit more detail on you build your database? I love that. I think that's a golden nugget for people that are listening that are brand new to real estate. The first step you have to do is build your database, and that starts with your friends, your family, your sphere of influence, and picking up the phone, calling them, letting them know what you're doing. Could you give us a little bit more detail on what type of calls are you making to your database? Like, how are you? So yeah, I know I need to build a database, but how did you guys go about making those calls? Like, what were you talking about? What were some of the ideas you came up with to keep in touch with people?
So first and foremost, if you're hitting anybody up and you don't talk to them on a daily basis or a consistent basis, and you go straight into the sell, you just shot yourself in the foot right there. I mean, that's the first thing you don't do. So we hit up everybody in our database. Hey, what's going on? How's life? You know, hey, we just got back from brain surgery. Tell them about that a little bit.
That's a great way to call.
It's like, oh man, it was some of the calls were hilarious, because I got some really good clients that are really, really good friends of mine, and man, they just hammer me into dust half the time. But you know, one of the biggest things that we did that we still do today, and we do on a completely different scale, is, hey, what's your birthdays? What's the family's birthdays? What's your anniversaries? Like when they bought the house, right?
Yep.
That's their home anniversary, and then birthdays for them and all their kids. So
yeah, that's such a soft. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff is huge. So we actually use a system called Send Out Cards, And what that does is it allows you to use your handwriting. You have it automated, so you can put in everybody's birthdays, everybody's anniversaries, whatever. It sends them out a card, sends them out some brownies, some cookies, whatever you want to send them. And oh man, it's such a nice presentation, and everybody loves that. So basically, our year back from surgery was gathering data, and so we were doing that hardcore with everybody. So we basically would hit them up, hey, what's going on, what's happening, and then we'd call them back a couple of days later, hey, I just wanted to let you know there's a couple things going on in the market right now. I know we spoke a few days ago. You said you're wondering what's up with your house. Here's a market analysis. Here's a CMA, anything like that you can give value, because everybody knows you're a realtor. Everybody knows that's what you do, and you sell things. They could care less, honestly, what's going on in your life as a realtor, unless they're good friends. So if you just go straight into the sell, completely wrong. You got to give value. And a little bit later, I'll kind of hit on what we're doing now for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's changing everything to a whole new level, streamlining the business, and basically allowing me to spend more time with my family and help coach the agents on my team.
Oh man, yeah. No, I love that. I think you're hitting on a core principle of real estate, which is it's all about relationships. And you have to build solid relationships with people. And how you build solid relationships with them is you connect with them on one of the pillars, I call it, of life. It's either their family, it's their occupation, it's their recreation, or their dreams. And so you've done that through send out cards. You've done that through phone calls. Walk us through a little bit of the journey. You start building your database. 99% of your business is coming from, I would call it your SOI, your sphere of influence with referrals. When did you start building a team, and how did that process go for you? Because I know we have some agents that are listening to this that they're at that stage where they have some transactions under their belt. They're trying to build a team. How did you guys go about building your business to the next level, getting agents under you?
Yeah, so we started out with the branding. I mean, that's like the first and foremost, branding, and then foundation of exactly what we're trying to do as a company. So we got some of the nicest business cards that you've ever seen. I mean, they're die cut, double sided, everything you could think of. I mean, they're hooked up. And I know a lot of people don't use business cards because we're kind of getting into that digital age. But every single time I handed it to a homeowner, whether if I was the buyer's agent handing it to the seller going to show their house, they always said, "Man, what a nice card." And I had people call me back when they couldn't sell their house. You know what I mean? So straight up branding on that kind of stuff. And the foundation. And my wife, she used to run a hair salon here in town. She was actually the youngest owner of a Nevada hair salon in the country, as far as we know. And so she was really, really good at foundation. So what was our purpose? What did we want to do? It can't always be about the money. If you literally are here to make money in real estate, which not saying we aren't. I mean, we're here to make money. Everybody wants to make money. But if that's your main focus, you're screwing yourself. It's not going to happen. You want to make sure that you have a purpose as far as what's going on. So we got involved with charities. A portion of our stuff will go to so what I had was called Chiari malformation. So we're hooked up with a couple different charities for that. We contribute and do different things for them and events and stuff like that. So the purpose is what are you trying to get at? What's the end goal? And you got to fill in the blanks all the way to get there. So if you want to sell 10 houses a month, for instance, how are you going to do that? And you work backwards. So that's kind of how we did it with everything. And I want to say we started out with just a couple of buyer's agents right off the bat. And I'm just one of those people where I've been doing it a while to where I've been through a lot of situations, and I have the knowledge as far as I've sold everything from manufactured houses to $1 million homes. It doesn't matter, everything in between. I sold a lot of manufactured houses, which is kind of funny, and that's some baby commissions right there, man. But that's just kind of how it works. So basically what we did was we started bringing people on, giving them our knowledge and kicking them leads as well. And we started just generating a ton of internet leads to help them out.
Okay, gotcha. And when you brought on, your first agents, they were strictly buyers agents. They weren't doing listings.
Yes.
They were strictly showing your buyers. How many
Yeah, and now if they wanted to do listings, I wouldn't say no. I just had to hold their hand all the way through.
Gotcha. Okay. How many transactions were you guys doing when you decided to hire on a buyer's agent? Was there a benchmark, or was it more of just you didn't want to show the buyers around just to free you up to go after listings? What was the decision maker? My first thought,
which I feel like I could have done it differently, which was that point you were talking on earlier, right? I was just like, hey, I'm going to get all these agents on a team. I'm going to collect payment from all of them on all their deals, and I'm going to get loaded and not have to make a ton of money, right? Or not have to spend a lot of time, right? Make a ton of money.
Yep.
That's the wrong thinking right there. And I know that was the wrong thinking. So, education for the agents is where it's at. You know, they come in and not all of them grew up in real estate. A lot of them don't even know the first thing about it. And I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how much you guys know about real estate school, but they don't teach you anything about what actually happens in real estate. You got to pass that test, and then you need to get in the field. And I call it like an apprenticeship.
Yes,
you know what I mean? 'Cause
I agree, man.
Kind of where I came from. So they got to do hands-on education, or they're not going to learn anything.
No, I think that's great. So now you're up to how many agents? 10 agents under you?
Yeah, we got 10 right now. We were up to 20.
Oh, wow.
And then we kind of had to chop it down a little bit. And it just was too much with what we had as far as systems and stuff like that, which I thought we had pretty good systems, but it just wasn't enough. And so now I got it dialed in where I can add people like crazy, and I don't actually have to physically be with them, and they can still learn everything that I have to know 24 hours a day.
Okay, and are you doing that through, is that more of a, because I'm curious, is that more of a knowledge base where you're recording like training videos and they can watch the videos, or was that more of like a lead generation problem where you had 20 agents and they're desperate for you to help them with leads and you can't get to them?
Yeah, so it got to the point where I didn't have enough time to run my business and also take care of 20 agents.
Gotcha.
So I went to, I don't know if you guys are familiar with 10X GrowthCon. It's a Grant Cardone thing.
We were there.
So the one that was here in Vegas, I went there. I always watch, I got all of the recordings and stuff. I'm a Cardone freak.
Yeah.
So, you know, I love that stuff, man. I eat it up. And so when we were there, right before that, I had actually got on Cardone University and kind of started the online training there, and it just, something clicked. I was like, man, I got to do this for the team. Wow. Why am I saying the same thing 20 times over and over? This is ridiculous. It doesn't matter if it's setting the alarm. It doesn't matter if it's taking a buyer out, doing showings, whatever. So I actually got hooked up with a training platform that I built out. That's what Everett Academy is. And basically I went through every time somebody asked me a question, I wrote it down, created a video, put it in the platform. So they can get on there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and watch exactly as if I was going to do it right there with them.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, no, I was at that Vegas GrowthCon too. It was awesome. Maybe
Were you?
Yeah, maybe I'll call myself a Cardone freak too for some reason.
Hey, man,
I think
I
say that. I'm a groupie, I think. I think I'm a groupie. I don't know. But okay, so you have 10 agents now. You're dialed in, and you've mentioned this whole podcast, systems, right? So you keep talking about systems, and that really has been I'm feeling that it's the foundation of you guys' success. Could you walk us through, you know, let's say there's an agent that's just getting started in the business right now. You know, would you walk us through kind of your process, the systems that you would implement in the business that you have implemented in yours to give some advice to our agents that want to be where you're at?
Yeah. So, my first thing before I hire anybody is I basically have a ClickFunnels page lined up. I love ClickFunnels.
Okay.
I have a page lined up that's basically like a fill in the blanks kind of thing, like an input form. And I ask a whole bunch of questions. And if their answers don't meet what I like, I don't even interview them. You know, they got to get through that first process to see if it's even going to make sense. Again, it's creating time in your business. So
wait, you do that to leads for your real estate business. So I'm making sure I understand. So like buyers and sellers?
I do that for any agents that want to come on my team.
Okay, gotcha.
I have them fill out a form to questions that I have, because if they can't meet the questions and it makes sense for me, they're not going to be a fit on the team.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to take it any further from there. So I started out with that. If they're all good, then I bring them in. We get them lined up with the brokerage, and then they start through my first couple of modules, which is almost like the beginner's courses. You know, I got an entire form section. I mean, there's, 60, 70 different forms in there. It's me explaining every single form, how to fill it out, what to do, what it's for, when you use it. So I want them to know that. I want them to know how to use lock boxes. I have full training on all that stuff. So anything that they need to know just first getting in, it's all on the portal. And so I basically have it lined out where they're going to go through X, Y, and Z modules before I even start sending them leads or before they can start doing any deals. Because the worst thing that happen is if you go out and you look stupid to your clients because you don't know how to open a lockbox or you don't know how to write an offer correctly. I mean, that's the worst thing that could happen. You don't want to look stupid. You want them to think you've been doing real estate forever, right? So I create that for them and make it easier for them to move at their own speed. But I like to go fast, so I try to push them a little more.
So education would be the first real pillar of of an agent. The first thing you would tell an agent is you have to master the understanding of contracts. I actually heard great advice that if you don't know how to fill out a contract, keep filling them out until you really master and understand every line on that contract, because that's the value or part of the value you're offering to your, buyers and to your sellers. So, read it front to back. Understand every line, go to your broker, obviously, if you don't. So education you focus on. After they know the lockbox, they know the contract, what do they do next in your mind?
So then we start working on phone calls. Okay. And I got drip campaigns that are lined up. Phone calls, though, and I want to hear how they are on the phone. You got to be able to talk just like this. You can't be super salesy. You don't want to have no energy. I mean, there's just a certain feel you got to have when you're on the phone. So I got different scripts. I have a playbook is what I call it.
That's
Basically,
awesome.
It's, hey, if this is the response, this is what you get. And honestly, our text campaigns do phenomenal. So we bring a lot of leads in and just kind of let the people run on the text campaigns if they don't respond right away. But I like to get people on the phones and see how they are, because if they suck, I got to fix that now.
I've actually heard that from other agents. Texting is really getting a lot of response for people. I've heard that from a lot of other agents, which is
Video
interesting.
is where everything's going, though.
Yep.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. And on that note too, I want to see how they are on a video. Let's do a welcome video. What's your bio? Tell me about yourself. Let's see how you are. Because if somebody's a little scared to get on the camera, they're probably going to choke when it comes to clients. There's people watching them. So I kind of like to get my people uncomfortable, kind of put them in situations and see what happens.
I love that.
That's how it was with me. My dad called it guerrilla marketing back in the day. He'd have me go knock on random doors and see if somebody wanted to sell their house, or see if we could even get inside to check out their kitchen upgrades or some crap like that.
Yep.
So it was one of those things where if you're not getting uncomfortable on a daily basis, you're just doing something wrong. If you're doing the same thing every day, it's like, yeah, schedules and stuff are good, but you got to step outside that comfort zone.
Dude,
you're never going to grow.
Yeah, man, that's a golden nugget. Growth starts at the uncomfort. You have to be uncomfortable to grow. So in terms of the phone calls, what are you guys calling? Like what leads are you calling? You're getting your agents to call?
Yeah. So we get warm, we get cold, we get hot. So I bring in a lot of Google leads. It's just one of those things where once you get that dialed in, you can kind of put it on autopilot.
So that would be like pay-per-click ads you're running?
Yeah.
Like Google AdWords?
Ads. Yep.
Okay.
And so that kind of stuff you can have running on specific days, specific times. You can schedule it out, once the analytics come in, and then just kind of let it do its thing. And my system, I run conversion. And so when a lead comes in, it rings the phone automatically. They can pick up and talk to the person right there, which is phenomenal. You want to do that.
Okay.
So we're calling on those. I'm having them call expired listings. I'm having them call FSBOs. Just because, I mean, the FSBO people are going to tear you apart, and it does it to every single agent. So I like to see what they do with those.
Yep.
And then just seller calls. We get farms from title just to see what they do with that. And I just kind of throw a list in front of them and say, let me see what you got, and then we tweak it from there.
Okay, I love that. And on your leads, like your Google leads, like what's your marketing budget look like on a monthly basis?
It kind of depends on what we did the month before, but usually $2 to $3 grand, something like that. And it kind of depends. A lot of big companies are going to be saying that they're $10 to $15 a lead. I got my stuff to like $3.50. So it just kind of depends on your targeting and how you do it.
Nice, man. You are dialed.
Yeah, and it's autopilot. I can turn it up, turn it down. I run about 3,600 keywords.
Okay.
So it's and I like to focus on specific areas in town. So if you don't want to work downtown, you don't want to work on the east side, you don't market to those areas. You know what I mean? So it's kind of more of like an ABC type thing when you do that.
One of the things that I want to point out to the audience listening, I think a huge mistake agents make is, and it's crazy because a lot of agents spend their way out of the business because they spend unwisely. But a huge mistake agents make is they don't want to spend money. So they do everything really cheap. And the idea of spending $3,000 a month on marketing is like terrifying to people, but yet they end up spending their way out of the business because what I see agents do is they hop from one marketing tool to the next marketing tool, trying to buy cheaply that magic thing, that magic tool, and it doesn't exist really. And I saw a great, quote basically the other day that said, "What's the best CRM?" And it was the one you'll use. The one you'll use. And that's what it is for so many marketing tools. Because I'm a marketing company myself, and we have competitors, but the truth is if you use a tool consistently, for any business that's been around for years and years and years, the reason why they've been around for years and years and years, because people are having success. People are coming back and they're doing repeat business with them. It's about consistently using, getting it dialed in, as you would say. You got your Google pay-per-click ads dialed in. But I just wanted to point out to the audience, he's spending $3,000 a month, meaning like, don't be afraid to spend money. Don't spend money foolishly. You got to track your numbers so you get return, but don't be afraid to spend money. And I see that so often with real estate agents that they're just so nervous. They hold on to their money so tight that they end up losing it.
They're cheap, man.
Yep.
They're cheap. And it's because the systems aren't put in place. If everything's put in place, you're not worried about that next check. If you're worried that this one deal that you're working on isn't going to close, well, you're completely wrong. You need to have way more than that going. If you want 2 deals to close, you better have 8 to 10 working on, man. Put them in escrow because they don't always go through. I've had short sales that have taken 3 years and you just don't get paid. The bank takes them back. So that happens. And what a lot of times people don't understand is like you were just saying with the CRMs, if you don't have something dialed in and you just move on to the next thing, 1, you're wasting money. 2, you're wasting your own time. And 3, how do you think all the systems are going to look to the clients? They're going to look like crap. You want to make sure everything is perfect before you move on to the next one. So it just kind of blows my mind. And it's funny you say agents don't like to spend money. And I mean, honestly, $3,000 is nothing. I know people that spend a ridiculous amount of money on a lot of different things, and so most of my stuff, I put a lot of money back into my clients as well. If you're not putting money back into your past clients and doing things for them, again, you're doing it wrong because they're your number one cheerleaders.
Guys, that is a huge golden nugget right there. I think the number one question everybody should ask themselves when they get into an industry is, where does the data say that transactions are coming from in this industry? So if you're in real estate, where does the data say that transactions come from? And if you follow the National Association of Realtors, which is you guys' association, their reports that they put out, it's literally over 60% of all transactions happen from your SOI. They happen from your past clients. They happen from your friends and family referring you. They don't happen. The majority of transactions do not happen from, open houses or FSBOs, though you should be doing those things to gain those transactions and ultimately to build your database. But it's just so interesting how people don't want to spend money on their past clients either. But those truly are, like you said, they're your cheerleaders. They're the ones that will build a business for you for 10, 20, 30 years versus a transaction for you to survive today.
Oh yeah, you could build an unbreakable business doing it like that. You know what I mean? And the thing with me is like I brain surgery. I mean, that wasn't cheap by any means. It cost me a ton of freaking money just on my copay with the doctors. My 20%. So with that, I still came back and I didn't care. I knew I needed to spend a little bit of money and kind of work it out from there and just kind of get rolling. But most of the stuff with me, I'm not real big on. I'm real big on education, but like live training as far as like you sit in a classroom kind of thing. I'm not real big on that. And so a lot of people like to do that with CE classes and think it's going to change their lives. I don't know. That ain't my thing. So I took my GED when I was in 10th grade. I had to get out of there, man. I was not happy in school, which is why I was able to start businesses early. But basically, by going through like that, it's just one of those things where you got to try something. If it doesn't work, okay, well, you tried it to your best, and then you move on to the next thing if it doesn't work. But everybody just thinks they're going to go get this CRM or have this ISA company working on stuff. And I mean, honestly, if you got to do it yourself and figure out what it is, how it works, because if you're going to be pissed off at somebody else thinking they're not doing their job, well, if you don't even know how the system works, then maybe they are doing their job and it's just not done right. You know what I mean?
Such a good point.
Is that is that kind of what led you to the, I know you have the online interactive real estate training. Is that something that any agent can take? Is that
Yeah. So any agent can grab it. It's one of those things where I just got sick of saying the same thing over and over and over and over. And I'm like, I want to be able to bring on an agent and this process be streamlined.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be at home hanging out with my brand new baby and my 3-year-old son and my wife and just somebody's still training, you know, instead of me being at the office for 25 freaking hours a day. I know that's an hour more than the day.
It's possible.
But,
I think we've done it before.
It's one of those things. It's like I just got sick of saying the same thing over and over. So I just started recording videos and started putting them down, and it kind of evolved from there. Now I'm putting together marketing courses because everybody on the planet comes to me asking for Google marketing and stuff. And it's like, all right, I'm going to build a system specific to realtors for Google marketing so they can go in there and figure out exactly what they want to do, how they're going to do it. And, you know, I can sell it to them on a platform. So it just, you know, monetizing knowledge, really.
No, man, I love that. I absolutely love that. Let me ask you this. You know, now that you're at the point where you've built this agent, you know, base of 10 agents, you mentioned something earlier in the podcast that said you now have allowed yourself more time with your family. You've built a system that allows yourself more time with your family. What is that specific? Why has it changed? Is it literally just the video series? Like, should brokers that are listening to this do a video series for the thing? Like, what is it that has allowed you that freedom?
So I would say video is one of the biggest things for sure. And I'll touch in a second here on like the biggest nugget that I feel is what's going to help everybody the most. But as far as brokers go, yeah, man, I mean, how many calls do brokers get on a daily basis of like the dumbest questions that I feel like they're dumb questions? In real estate, I guess there is no dumb question, right? But when you've been doing it forever, you're like, oh man, you could have Googled that question. You know what I mean? I actually have a broker. That's his favorite thing. He says, Google it. And I'm like, man, I want to slap you upside the head telling me to Google something, you know? But it got to the point where it's like, look, you know, if the same question's coming through, they're not the only ones with this problem. Other people are going to have this problem too. Right. You need to give them the solution and make it available to them at any time of the day. So what we recently implemented is a full training platform for our clients. So basically line out your YouTube channel and have it dialed in where you got training for the buyers, the buyer course and seller course. So a buyer, they don't know about real estate more than likely. So, you know, what's an earnest money deposit? When does it need to go in? You know, how much is an inspection cost? What's the process? You know, do a video, line it out for them. Maybe you go through, we have all of our forms lined out. So it's like, look, this is a duty zone. This is what it means. This is where you sign. And this is why you're initialing in this spot. So then when you send them the forms, they don't question what it is. You already did it. So if you have canned responses lined up and it's already set up to where it's like, look, you just got into escrow with this person. You're just showing houses with this person. Grab this canned response that already has your video link in there, all the verbiage set up for it, and say, this is the form you're going to be getting electronically to sign. Please make sure to watch the video so you understand what it is. And you do that, you dial it in through all the way through the system and have canned responses lined up for it. I mean, think of the amount of time you're going to save. You don't have to go to people's houses to explain forms or sit on the phone for 25 minutes. You know what I mean?
No, man,
so
I've
by
never
doing
heard
it like
of
that,
any agent doing that. That's awesome.
Now, I don't like to do anything average, and I don't like to do anything that everybody else is doing. So if they're doing something, I'm running the opposite way and doing completely what they're not. So I like to do what everybody else doesn't do because that's what makes me stand out. And I mean, I already kind of stand out because I don't really talk, you know, like most realtors and stuff. I'm just kind of do my thing, and I don't really care what anybody thinks about me anyway.
Sure.
So, but by doing that kind of stuff with the video series, I mean, think about it. Where are you going to go find something out? Your dishwasher breaks, right? Sprinkler, something's wrong. You're going to YouTube.
Right.
You want to watch a video. Nobody wants to read any crap about that. They want to watch a video that takes 2 minutes instead of reading a 15-minute blog.
Yep.
You know, I'm not saying blogs aren't good because blogs are the bomb. They rank really well. But video's where it's at. And if you're not moving to video, you're falling behind fast. Our brokerage is actually lining out 2 full-on media rooms right now. So I usually would rent out studios for a day, crank out a bunch of videos. Now I'm going to be able to do it 25 feet from my office.
Nah, that's awesome, man. That is a really good tip. I really have not heard of agents using video in that way, like a course. I've heard of it sending a video that answers a question, you know, through social media or through text or something, but never like a course for your clients. I think that is awesome, man. I think you're really onto something there. So
how many people just do like the weekly email updates and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Instead of just recording a quick video, say, hey, this is what I did. Maybe you're putting an ad together for them, screen record your screen and say, hey, look, this is the ad I'm putting together. This is what it looks like. This is how many views we got, whatever. But by showing them, there's zero issues. If something were to happen in the transaction, you got to go in front of the board. It's like, look, I freaking did a whole video, outlined all this for them. There is no way they can say they didn't understand this. No way.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's great.
No, I do. I seriously love that. I also think like where we're headed, and this is something that I was talking to an agent about literally just this week, is just the power of being social now and being on social media and video and all these things. It's all about, traditionally, it's about how many times can you touch people? Like you hear real estate, it's a contact sport. Right? So it's the amount of times you can contact somebody, the amount of times you can touch somebody that builds what? It builds that top of mind awareness, that branding, to where when they think real estate, they think of you. But the only way you get them to think of you in a good light is to build that education, is to build that, I call it authority on a subject matter. You have to have, as Grant Cardone would say, because you're a Grant freak, you have to have altitude on a subject matter, right? So you want to build that authority, and you do that through education. But if you're constantly touching people through video, through social media, it's just, in the olden days, you would just send one mailer out a month. Or maybe when the emails came up, you're sending one email a month. Now, still do those things because it's a contact sport. You want to contact people as much as you possibly can. But now sending videos to people, showing up on their feed on social, it's just so powerful. And the reach. And one of the tips that came out of that when I was talking to this agent that I thought was super powerful is, not only can you leverage your social media to share video and all this stuff, you can leverage your social media to see who your leads are connected with. And what this person is doing now is they're literally going to their listing appointments. But before they go to that person's social media and they look at their friends and they find someone, just like LinkedIn does for you. They find someone they're connected with and they bring that up at their listing appointment, and the rapport building that does, like, hey, I saw you actually know, so-and-so. I saw Josh Steik. That rapport building right there. So it's just such a powerful way to touch people. I love it, man. So tell me about, this question we asked to all the people that come on that we get to interview. Everybody's looking for the magic formula for success, right? And I mean, I'm still looking for it, but it doesn't exist. There's no magic bullet out there necessarily. I believe there's magic, or I shouldn't say magic. I believe there's principles of success that are consistent that everybody should do. But I'm curious, for you in your life, you've overcome having brain surgery. You've overcome some really tremendous trials, you might call it, in your life, and you've built a brokerage with 10 agents under you. What are the routines that you have done, that you've implemented in your daily life to drive success?
So I map out my whole week. I live by my schedule and calendar on my phone. One of the first things I do, which recently it hasn't been as successful as normal because I got a 3-week-old baby, so we haven't been sleeping a whole lot. But basically, I like to wake up before the sun comes up. That's a Cardone thing as well. If you beat the sun up, you start the day out winning. So, and you get up early. You get up earlier than anybody else, which if you actually work that out to the end of the month, I mean, shoot, you got a whole week on some people, you're that much further ahead. So I like to get up and get rocking as quickly as I can, and schedule everything out as much as I can, So I'll give 30 to 60 minutes every day on training. I'll make sure to read a couple chapters of a book every day, or audio books while I'm driving around. I like to consume information because you never know when that information is going to either help you get a listing or help you get a buyer, or just help you with marketing and help you get things going on. So I implement that kind of stuff. Training with the team every single Monday. We have a meeting to make sure that everybody's on point and everybody's rocking and rolling, who needs what help. And then we get going from there. So scheduling is the biggest thing. If you got people that you want to touch, I make sure that I make it the minimum 25 phone calls a day to past clients, current clients, just see what's going on and see who they got in their pipeline that I might be able to grab.
That's a golden nugget, guys. A minimum 25, you said? Minimum 25?
Yeah, which is low, man. I mean, if we're cold calling, awesome. I mean, we're hitting 100, 150 a day on cold calls, because we'll use dialers and stuff. We have built-in dialers that'll just crank through, leave a voicemail while we're on the next call.
Love it.
So it's one of those things where you got to fill in the gaps. And another thing with Cardone, I'm not going to keep mentioning his name, but if you got white space on your calendar, you're not doing enough. So if you were to go to a job and it's 9 to 5, right, you're going to be working your ass off from 9 to 5. That's just how it works. You're going to have a lunch break, maybe another little break in between. But if you're running your own business and you're just like, oh, I'm going to go get some coffee, or oh, I'm going to stroll around the parking lot. Oh, maybe I'll just go up here and look at some other stuff. You're just think about it. If there was a boss, you would have been fired a long time ago. So if you treat it like you're the CEO of a company and you actually dial it in right, you better be working from the time the freaking sun comes up to the time the sun comes down. And that doesn't mean you got to be on your computer, be in the office the whole time. But get on social media, like everybody's post, comment, interact with people, instead of screwing around looking at whatever on Instagram. People scroll through the search feeds and stuff like that, looking at, freaking duck crossing the road, whatever, If you actually get on there with a purpose, it makes sense. And then when you get into the office, you don't do, I'm one of those that I do chit chat a lot with other agents, but I have a different goal in mind.
Right.
One, I have training that I need to sell them, right? They need to buy it. And two is I like to know what everybody's got going on, because there's definitely a puzzle piece that I can fit in to that and make it make sense. But I try to keep it to a minimum if I can. Sometimes it gets away with me because, as you can tell, I like to talk. So, but scheduling everything out, man, I mean, you crank out a couple of videos, you go in on a Monday and you're like, look, I got 4 hours. You better use that 4 hours as best as you can. You know what I mean? And the whole goal is to get all these systems in place to where you can work 3 or 4 hours a day and crush everybody in the industry because you have systems put in place. I would love to be able to work a few hours a day and still be one of the top producers. I was 22nd in my brokerage for last year, which was a move up from the year prior. But I grow every single year, and it's just due to systems and schedules. I'm an information junkie, and I also just love to work. It's kind of weird. I like to work. I like to hang out with my family. That's kind of like what I do. My buddies get pissed off, but is what it is. That's what I like to do.
Nah, man, I love that. I agree so much that if you can own your calendar, then you can own your life. If you can own your calendar, which is so hard because so often we drift towards the things that are the easiest things to do, or we choose to overcomplicate things to give us an excuse when we fail. I mean, it's just so often we just make excuses for ourselves, where if you just consistently own your calendar, and I read an article on successful people, they block down to 15 minutes. They're blocking down to 15 minutes of their day. Now, I have tried that. I have found that personally in my own life to be really, really difficult to do because of the reactive things that happen during the day. But, you know, this whole idea of waking up early, I've been on this kick of waking up at 4 a.m. for about a year and a half now. And it really does put your mind ahead of the game from just an inspiration standpoint. Like, you've accomplished something that I know when Josh Dyke is asleep, I'm awake. You know? Oh, sorry, Josh. I forgot.
I'm like only an hour behind you now. I have work back.
Yeah, he is. Now he's getting up.
I'm now getting up at 5 a.m. So I'm working backwards. I told you I'd get there.
But I agree with you,
kind of hit on a point that you mentioned earlier regarding people getting in their own heads about situations, right? Like, oh man, I got to make this phone call. What are they going to say? Oh, they're gonna be pissed off, or maybe a deal fell apart or something. Oh, what are they going to say? What's this and that? I mean, that's like the biggest mistake everybody makes, and that's the biggest waste of time. Oh, let me go get some coffee. Let me go think about this. I'll call them in a minute. You don't ever end up calling them. If you just call them immediately, like 9 times out of 10, the conversation doesn't even go the way that you thought it was going to go.
Correct.
It's usually like, well, damn, that was a breeze. That was easy. That was nothing. And then you can move on to your next task. And so that's just wasting time. And so, they always say that anytime that you're afraid of something like that, the faster you do it, the faster it goes away.
It's like jumping in a swimming pool. You don't just walk in. You don't walk into a freezing swimming pool. You jump in, people. Come on. Seriously. All right. So last question for you, man.
Yeah.
And this one's, we'll go deep with you on this one. What would you go back and tell your younger self? What would you tell little Sean, back in his childhood as a little boy? What advice would you give him of, what he should look out for, what he should do better, what he should do, what he should focus on more, what he should run away from, those type of things?
So first thing I would have said was, man, you better network like a beast, because as they say, your network is your net worth, right? And man, I tell you what, I know a lot of people in this town, and it's funny, a lot of friends I grew up with ended up being freaking realtors. So it kind of, took some of my business away. But if I would have been able to stay in front of everybody and maybe not been like a recluse or anything like that, just kind of kept rolling and gone to more functions and things like that, I'd be top of mind for everybody all the time. I'd have a bigger network. That was the biggest thing, I think. Next thing would be is slow down a little bit. I wanted to jump into having a big team and get rocking fast. I think if I would have slowed down, had the foundation a little bit more hardcore, maybe put an assistant in place before buyer's agents, things like that to kind of help my life run smoother, I think that would have been a huge plus, instead of doing it backwards. So that's kind of, that's my biggest thing, and then just staying in front of people and be nice to everybody. Nobody likes somebody who's an ass, That's just plain and simple. So they like to be around fun people. Nice. And so if you got a good attitude, that's just, people like being around attitude. Yeah. They're attracted to people with good attitudes. And if you're a likable person, you're just going to attract the business. It's going to be, you're just going to be a money magnet.
Yep. That's great advice, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Sean.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Before we close, let people know how they can connect with you. Where can they check out your online training?
Yeah, so just hit me up on social media. I'm on it all the time. So Facebook, just look me up, Sean Everett. My personal page is public, so you can hit me up. And if your personal pages aren't public, you better make them public because that's how people are going to find you. And then my Instagram is The Real Sean Everett. So at The Real Sean Everett. You can message me, direct message me. I'd love to show you kind of what we got going on, what can help you out, and go on from there.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for listening to this episode of Stay Paid. If you like what you heard, please go on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, and make sure to leave us a comment. You can also find this podcast in video on youtube.com/ReminderMedia or on staypaidpodcast.com. Please make sure to tell someone else about the podcast today. It really helps us spread the word. And if you'd like to get a hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And now there's yet another way to connect with us. We just set up our Instagram at Stay Paid Podcast. Yeah, so check that out. It's been updated. We've got some cards. Andrea got so excited she's choking on her Tivana from Starbucks in the background. But it's already set up with the grid. It looks really cool. We've got our guests featured on there, so I'm sure Sean's picture will be up there soon as well after this podcast released. But definitely go give us a follow. I think we have like 5 followers.
Nice.
So we really need.
Dude, one is my mom. One is Andrea's mom.
Sorry. Andrew said we have 36 followers.
We have 36 followers. So one is Josh's mom, Jesse's mom. No.
In defense, it was set up about 2 hours before we recorded this. So
I love it.
Of course, you can check out Reminder Media on all the other social medias. We're at Reminder Media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree, guys. And it's so much, golden nuggets and tips, I would call them, that you heard on this podcast. But I want to, give you an action item because Stay Paid is all about giving you actionable advice that you can literally implement this week in your business and make a difference. And I thought really one of the most powerful things that Sean said on this podcast was this idea of calling 25 of your past clients every single day. And when I'm coaching real estate agents, I want to just give you guys an idea of a comparable. I find myself sometimes begging them to just call 5. Yep. I beg them to just call 5. And he's calling 25 a day, and he's saying that's low. And I agree with him. I think, real estate, we mentioned it on the podcast, it's a contact sport. It is literally, if you can build a connection with people and a relationship with people, then you have a chance of earning their repeat business and their referrals, but you don't have a relationship with people that you don't talk to. Yeah. And so the action item that I would beg, plead, kick, scream, tell you it's the key to your success is pick up that telephone when you get off this podcast today. Pick up that telephone, call 25 of your past clients and take Sean's advice. Don't go in selling. Go in with the script of literally haven't talked to you in a while, wanted to see what was going on with you, how has life been treating you, catch up, then use another follow-up call to go offer value with a free CMA, a free market update for them in their neighborhood, something of value, and watch when you do the contact, when you play the numbers game, you'll get results. Remember, the difference between a top producer and a mediocre producer in every single industry is top producers take action. So you just heard that piece of advice. Take action on that today.